Good day. So this is my recipe app made by WPF.net Framework. I'm going to be going through how each function works and every button and how each functionality in the whole application works and how it runs. So don't be alarmed right now that you're seeing a wide screen to your right side. We're just going to focus our attention on the right side. On the left side of the screen, sorry. And this is just basically showing us our main menu options. We have enter recipe, display recipes, display recipe details, calculate total calories, recipe scale, reset recipe values, filter recipe, clear recipe data, and then last of all, exit. So we're just gonna pay attention onto this button, and once you press this button, the whole white screen on the right side is actually gonna change, and that's just basically how the whole functionality of the buttons on the left side work. So we're just gonna click enter recipe, and this is basically what's gonna show you. So once you click enter recipe, now we're able to see the display name and the text boxes for enter recipe name, the ingredients and everything that we need, steps, and the buttons here. So we're just gonna go through and create two recipes so we can use for the rest of the functionality for the buttons. So here it says enter recipe name, and now before we actually do anything, you can see all the error codes and all the error handling that I've done. So let's just say you just say save steps for some reason. It's gonna say please enter, sorry for the noise if you can hear it, but it does say please enter a recipe name and save ingredients first. So we're just gonna press OK. And also if you say save ingredients without anything being filled in the text boxes as well, it's also gonna say please enter a recipe name. So first thing you need to do when you get into the application is actually enter your recipe name. So I'm just gonna say steak. I'm gonna write steak here, and I'm gonna go start writing my ingredients. So I'm gonna go meat. I'm gonna write meat for the first ingredient, and I'm gonna go 2,000 grams. Now the reason why I write 2,000 grams and not 200 kgs, the reason why I'm writing 2,000 grams and not 2 kgs is because I want to show you that if you do enter 2,000 grams, it will automatically change for you to go 2 kgs. So now that I've written 2,000 grams of meat, I can just enter the calories. That should be a lot. That should be 700 maybe. And then the food group for meat is protein. So basically now that we've all set and done, for the recipe name is steak, and now we've entered the first ingredient that we want to use for steak, and now we're just gonna say save ingredients and recipe name button. We're just gonna press that, and now it's just gonna, this is what I was talking about. So now in the confirmation box, it says the quantity is in grams and greater than 1,000. Do you want to scale it to kilograms? So basically before, my whole project was just that once you've written 2,000 grams, it automatically scales for you. But now I've displayed it to the user that if they actually do want to scale it, then they can actually change it to from grams to kilograms. So now we're just gonna say yes, because now we wanna scale it to 2 kgs. Sorry for the noise if you are hearing it. I literally don't have anything on how to solve that problem. But then the ingredient and recipe names has been added successfully. I'm just gonna press OK. Now, as you can see, everything, all the text boxes for the ingredients has been removed, but we can see that the recipe name here has stayed, because now this allows us to enter multiple ingredients and multiple steps for this recipe name called steak. But before I do that, I actually want to enter my first step, which is add meat to pan. And we're just gonna say, and then now once you entered your first once you've entered your first step, you can hit save steps. Now the reason why you should write one step at a time and just save the steps is because you don't want to like write it like this, because then it's not gonna save one at a time, if that makes sense. So now once you've written your first step, you want to say save steps, and it's gonna tell you that the recipe steps has been saved successfully. So you want to say okay, and then now I can add in another ingredient. So I, under the same recipe name, I can add oil. I can go oil. We can go 2 teaspoons. 2 teaspoons. We can say this is not allowed. We can say 60, and then for the food group is actually oil for the food group. So now I want to save the ingredients and recipe name under the same recipe name called steak. Now we've done that. The ingredient and recipe name has been added successfully. So we're gonna say okay, and then now we're just gonna enter our other step, which is add oil to meat, and we can say save steps. But actually, before I do that, I actually want to see if I can actually reduce the audio real quick here, and then say add oil to meat, and then we can say save steps. So hopefully when I do press save steps, the noise isn't there anymore. So let me just say save steps. Okay, now the noise is gone. Okay, that's good. Okay, so the recipe steps has been saved successfully. Now under the so that's the second step that we've added. So we can continue like writing the same steps, or create new ingredients underneath the steak. So let's just say I want to write one more step. So let's go steak steps for recipe. We can go fry in pan, and then that's just another step that we can do, and then we can save the step, and then the recipe steps has been saved successfully. So we're gonna say okay, and then now we've created our recipe called steak, and we added 2 ingredients and 3 steps for it. So now let's just make another ingredient so we can have let's just make another recipe so we can have 2 recipes. I'm just gonna clear this, and we're just gonna say cake. This time I just want to add 1 ingredient just to show you the whole functionality. So I'm just gonna do this quick. I'm gonna go milk. I'm gonna go quantity. Now I'm just gonna show you for 2,000 liters. Now 2,000 millimeters. So I'm just gonna say milliliters there, and for calories I'm just gonna say 200, and for food group I'm gonna say this is dairy. So I'm just gonna say dairy here, and then now I'm just gonna say the ingredients and the recipe name. So it's telling me that since my quantity is greater than 1,000 and my units is also milliliters as well, that I can change it to 2 liters. So from 2,000 milliliters to 2 liters, I can actually change it. I can decide not to change it if I want to, but this time I'm just gonna change it so I can show you. And I'm just gonna say okay, and then just gonna write a step for it, which is add milk to bowl. And this is literally the only step I'm gonna write, just so it's not repetitive. And I'm just gonna say save steps, and now it's saved to my recipe. And I'm just gonna say okay, and now I'm just gonna clear the whole list. And whether or not I wanna enter new recipe or new ingredients or whatever, then I can do that as well. And also if you go just under like thing I want to talk about, if you do more stuff in here, and then you come back and you say you want to enter a new ingredient and new steps for steak, you can do that as well. You can keep on adding ingredients and steps as long as you supply the recipe name for it. So now we just want to display the recipe names in alphabetical order. So this button should take us there, and now we can see display recipe names. Remember, I inputted the recipe name steak first, and steak is here now, and cake is above steak because now it's displaying in alphabetical order, and C comes before S. So that's basically just how the recipe names function works. So I'm just gonna go now. I just want to display the whole recipe details, including the recipe names. So I'm gonna hit display recipe details, and it's gonna show me the 2 recipes that I've entered here. Recipe name steak shows me my first ingredient that I actually inputted, which is meat, and my second ingredient that I actually inputted, which is oil. So it says recipe name steak, ingredient 1, ingredient 2, and all the quantities and the units and calories and food group of each, and then it adds the steps. Now you see why I told you to click on the steps, write your first step, then click save step, write your second step, then click save step, is because so it can display like this. Now if you wrote everything one line, it would only show you one step, and everything would be in a huge long line. So that's basically just how the whole functionality of that works. Now recipe name as well, it shows you the recipe name cake and the ingredient 1. We only have 1 ingredient, so it shows us the ingredient 1, which is milk, and the rest of all the quantity, units, calories, food group, and the steps for each. As you can see, we only added 1 step, so we can leave it like that. And now let's just say you want to calculate the total calories of each recipe. So let's just see. So 700 plus 60, that's 760. So if you come here to the total calories page, you can see it says select recipe. We can come here to the combo box here and drop down. Now you can see that our 2 recipes that we've entered have been saved into the system. And let's just say we want to calculate the total recipe for steak. Now we click steak, and now we should press calculate calories. Now, if the total calories exceeds 300, it should display an error box saying that, or warning box that is exceeded 300. So now we know that the total calories should be 760. So it should display us that message box. And there you go. Calories have exceeded 300 because the total calories is equals to 760. Now I'm just going to say, okay, we've calculated that. Let's go back to display recipes. Let's just calculate. Now we only have one ingredient, which is calories, which is 200. So if you go back here and calculate cake, it shouldn't even display any message. You just calculate total calories, which is 200, and it doesn't show us any warning message or anything. So that's basically just how the calculate total calories page works, and how the whole functionality of that works as well. So we're gonna go, let's say now we want to scale a recipe. We're gonna scale a recipe, and it displays you onto this page, and then it says select recipe to scale. So now again with the combo box, we can see all the recipes we've added, which is steak and cake. Let's say you wanna select steak to scale, and we can also write down the scale factor. You can write down any scale factor that you want, but I'm just gonna write 2, and I'm just gonna go back to here and see the quantities, because we're scaling the quantities. So quantity equals to 2, and the quantity equals to 2. So now when we change it, it should change to 4. And also, I actually want to point out this to you as well, because I think I forgot to mention. Remember, we wrote 2,000 grams here, and it's changed to 2 kgs. So that's basically what the whole kind of functionality of that works. So if we decided not to change it from grams to kgs, it would say 2,000 grams here instead of 2 kgs. But we did decide to change it, so it's 2 kgs here. Same goes with the liters. We changed it from 2,000 milliliters to, and now it's changed to 2 liters. It did all the calculations for us, and now we've entered liters as well. So now it should scale all the quantities. So luckily for us, all the quantities are 2 for each ingredient that we've entered here. So now when we scale the recipe, it should change to 4 if we scale it by 2. So we're gonna go steak, and we're just gonna scale it by 2. Now actually, let's scale it by 3 so you can see more of a difference. And we're gonna scale recipe. And now I prompt you whether or not you wanna scale the recipe. So let's just click no. So let's just say I wasn't sure, and now it's canceled the action, but we actually do want to scale the recipe. So now we're gonna say yes. It's gonna prompt you here and say the recipe was scaled successfully. Now we're gonna press OK, and we're gonna go back to the display page to see the functionality and what happened. So now we can see that since we scaled it by a factor of 3, 2 times 3 is 6, and 2 times 3 is 6, and we've scaled each quantity for the recipe. Now we're gonna scale cake by the factor of 2. The quantity should change from 2 to 4. So let's go back to recipe scale and change it to 4. So we're gonna choose cake, scale it by 2, say yes here, say yes here. Now we're gonna say okay, and we're gonna go back to display recipe details, and you can see it's changed from quantity 2 to the quantity of 4. Now let's just say we don't want to scale anything back. Let's just reset all the recipe values back to the original values that it was. So now again with the combo box, you can change steak, and then now you can reset. It prompts you whether or not you sure if you want to reset the values. Let's just say no, just to see what happens. Reset action canceled, but we actually do want to reset the recipe. So now we say okay, and then we go back, and it should change from 6 back to 2. So here we go, and the quantities have changed from 6 back to 2, and there we go. And we can do the same thing for cake real quick, just to scale everything back. Just to show you that the cake is still 4, by the way. We can go here, and the quantity is still 4, but we can reset it back just to show you that all the functionality works as well. And then we can reset, and then we can say yes, and we can display it over here, and it's changed back to 2. So every quantity has changed back to 2 now. And that's just basically how the reset recipe values function works. And yeah, that's literally how all these buttons work. So now we're moving on to filter recipe. Now for the filter recipe, this is the page that it shows you. Now what the filter recipe page functionality is all about is that we just want to see a specific recipe name and all the recipe details underneath that. So now we have a list box over here, that we can actually display all the ingredients and the recipe names and everything underneath the list box here once we filter it. So let's just say, since there's nothing in the box, we can just filter it, and both recipes should come up because there's nothing in the boxes. So there we go. We have recipe name steak and recipe cake. So the reason why we filtered it is because, and it shows, is because we have nothing in the text boxes. So we're just gonna clear that real quick, and then we're just gonna say ingredient. Now, one of the ingredients is meat. We know we have meat in the in one of the recipes. So we're just gonna say meat. And remember, this filtering is case sensitive. So you can't write meat like this because we don't have an ingredient in the recipe with the word MEAT in all caps. So just remember that it's all sensitive. So we just want to say meat. I'm gonna filter, and it should show us in the list box the recipe name steak, because that's where the ingredient meat is. So there it goes, and that's how the functionality works. So just gonna clear both of them, and I'm gonna go food group. We know we have a food group called I think it was milk, and I think we called it dairy. So cake, the recipe cake should display here once we filter it. So I'm gonna say cake, and I'm gonna filter dairy, and there we go. The recipe name for cake has been shown, and then maximum calories. Now this is where it gets tricky for most people. So maximum calories. So when we filter it, it should show us that no recipe above the maximum calories should be displayed. So if I said 200, no, sorry, if I said 100 and I filter it, it's gonna show me a display message box here, saying there are no available recipes with your specific filter. Now the reason for that is because there's no recipe with the calories underneath 100, if that makes sense. So I'm just gonna do it again. So I know that the calories counter for steak was 760, and the calories counter for cake was 200. So if I said 201, then only the cake recipe is gonna appear, because the maximum calories 201, and the total calories for cake was 200. So now we're gonna go here, and you can see recipe name as displayed because the total calories is 200 here. So we're just gonna clear this. Now we're gonna go 760. Now, no, actually, let's go 800. If we go 800, then both of the recipes are gonna display, because both of them are underneath the maximum calories of 800. So we're gonna filter, and you can see that both of them have appeared, and we know that the total calories for steak is 760. So we can clear this, and we can say, let's say 759, only one of them is gonna appear. So if you said 760 though, if you said 761, and we filter it, then both of them will show as well. And you can also filter two at a time. So you can say oil, and you can say oil here, and you can filter, and it will show you both. You'll show you the recipe name for the ingredients that have oil and the food group that has oil in, and you can clear that. And you can also filter for all three things. So you can say milk, and then here you can say dairy, and then here you can say 300. So it should display the milk recipe here, and there we go, the milk recipe has been displayed. So that's basically just how the filter recipe works. I mean, the filter recipe page works. That's just how the whole functionality of each thing works. And it basically just filters and displays all the recipe and all the ingredients and steps for each filter that you have. So because we have milk, we have an ingredient called milk, a food group called dairy, and maximum calories called 300 for 300, and this recipe meets those necessary requirements, then it displays. So that's basically just how the filter button works. So we're just gonna clear this, and we're actually done with that. And now we actually want to delete a recipe. We don't need the recipe anymore. We actually want to delete the recipe. So now we're just gonna go here, and the combo box as well. These are the two recipes that we have. Let's say we want to delete steak. Let's say we want to delete steak off the whole system. So now we're gonna hit delete, and it's gonna prompt you whether or not you want to clear the recipe. Let's just say no. It's not gonna do anything. As you can see, steak is still here. Steak hasn't been cleared away if we said no. So now we're just gonna say steak, delete, say yes, and now recipe cleared successfully. So now we're gonna say okay, and we're gonna go back to display recipe details. Only cake is showing because steak has been deleted off the whole program. And also if you go to the display recipes here, only cake shows as well because steak has been deleted. So with all this said and explained, this is basically just how the whole enter recipe works, how the whole display recipe works, how the whole display recipe details works, how the whole calculate total calories for each recipe that you've inputted works, how the whole recipe scaling for each works, and the reset recipe values, and the filter recipe. As you can see, if we say steak now, sorry, not steak. If we said meat now, meat isn't in the system anymore. So if we filter it, it's gonna say there are no available recipes, which is specific filter, which is good. That's what we want. And yeah. And if we said one, yeah, no, yeah. So yeah, basically that's just how the whole application works. And also, if you want to clear it as well, we can also clear cake away from the system and say yes. And recipe has been cleared successfully. And you can see there's no recipe details here, and there's no recipe names here. And that's basically just how the whole application works. And this is just how my whole program made by WPF.NET Framework works. And I've gone through each function and each functionality of each. And now I'm just going to exit the whole program. It's going to say, do you want to exit? Let's just say I say no. It's not going to exit, but I actually do want to exit. And it's going to say yes. So that's basically just how the whole application works. And hopefully I explained everything in detail, and hopefully you understood what I was trying to say in each thing that I was explaining. I know I speak a bit fast, but I'm sorry if that caused you to misunderstand me. But that's literally, this is the whole functionality. Everything works properly. All the buttons and all the display things work. All the text boxes and all the list boxes work as well. So that's basically my application. And yeah, thank you for watching.